we're off to a little spot I know where we can find quite a few orchids. Most of them now will have not be at their best. They started quite a few weeks ago, but there should be some that come into flower in October, and so we'll see what we see. It's a nice little quiet spot. Not many people go there, and it's amazing what you can find there. So we'll just hang on and enjoy the drive. I've been coming up here looking for orchids for the last 2 months, and I've been coming up about once or twice a week in that period. And one of the reasons why I just love coming up here is that it seems like every time I get here there's something different to see. Well, here we have a little fringed forest Mantis orchid. It's a bit past its prime, as it's quite late in the season for this little flower. But as you can see, it's the most amazing 3D sculptural object. And our biggest challenge will be to light this in such a way that we preserve the delicate nature of all the little fronds and have sufficient depth of field to render the flower in focus. So here's a close-up of the flash gun showing how it's been snooted. I bought this, it's a cheap Chinese rip-off of a Rogue flash bender. I've got it in the snooted configuration at the moment. You can see the TTL cord, and that's running off to the camera. You'll also notice that what I've done to support the flash is I've got a Manfrotto magic arm assembly there, and that's clamped to one of the legs of my tripod, and that provides quite a good support. You can bend it into virtually every conceivable position to get the lighting effect you want. The lens I'm using on the camera is a 105mm macro, and I'm using it in manual focus mode to make sure I get precise focus, particularly with this subject, because it's so thin and delicate that the camera autofocus struggles at times to find the focus. Right, so I've set up my camera. I've determined my ambient light exposure with flash at the moment as being 1/25th of a second at f11, and this gives me a correct exposure for the flower in daylight at 400 ISO. I've done a test shot with the flash and I found the flash was too hot, so on the flash exposure compensation, because I'm shooting TTL flash, I've dialed in -2 stops, and this stops me getting any little blown out areas on the flower, as it's quite a reflective surface. Okay, so now I'm going to set my shutter speed to underexpose the background. Now if I set it to a 50th, that's 1 stop underexposed. 100th is 2 stops. 200 is 3 stops. And 400th of a second is 4 stops under exposure. Now, I'll just tip the shutter and I check not only the histogram on my LCD screen and I check the enlarged image there. Live view has been a real boon for shooting this kind of work, and using my trusty Hoodman I can check to see and I can see that I've got critical focus, but my image still is a little bit too hot in places. So that's fine. I shall just stop it down another stop. And here we go again. Perfect. So we're still with the same plant, but this time we're going for a different look, a different lighting scenario. I've mounted the camera, the flash gun a little bit higher and fitted a softbox, and this is going to provide a more diffuse looking light, and what I'm going to look is blend that more with what the ambient light's doing. And so I'm going to set it up so that my flash gun is my key light and my ambient light is going to be the fill light. Okay, and this will hopefully provide a nice modelling for the flower. And how I'm going to do this is I set the camera to aperture priority mode. I've bumped up my ISO to give me 200th of a second flash, which is the maximum sync of this camera, only because it's a little bit windy today and the flower's been blown all over the place and I don't want ghosting on the flower. Using the exposure compensation dial, I'm going to dial in -1 stop. So this will mean that my exposure is, for the ambient, is 1 stop lower than the flash. Okay. So let's see how that looks. And that's not looking too bad. I have time for one last shot before the light leaves me. And just next to where I was shooting just before, I found a couple of little cowslip orchids. So pretty well using the same lighting that I had earlier. I'm going to use the same method, setting to aperture priority, -1 stop exposure compensation, so that will provide the ambient light, again provides my fill, main light coming from my flash gun, and we'll just see how that works out. Lovely. Well, hopefully that has given you a bit of idea of how I work on location with the wild orchids here in Western Australia. I shall now finish the video with a slideshow of some of the highlights of the season that has just been, and I hope that you enjoy it. And I'm already looking forward to next winter when it all starts again. So thank you for watching.